Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm an amateur model builder. I'm building a layout in my basement called the White River Line, inspired by the Frisco Railroad in the Ozarks. In this episode, I'm hoping to get started laying some track here on the layout. And I say hoping because, well, I'm still waiting for some supplies to come in. Now I'm going to be hand laying the track here on my railroad. I'm not going to be using sectional track or flex track. I'm going to build it all from scratch. So, while I'm waiting for these supplies to come in, I actually have quite a bit of prep work in order to be able to get started on that. So, well, let's jump on into it. I had started drawing in the lines for my track with a felt tip pen, but I soon realized that if I made any mistakes or needed to make changes, it was going to be difficult to erase them. I'd seen other modelers paint the top of their foam on their Benchwork. I'm going to be doing this eventually when I put in the scenery, so I figured I could do that now and be able to draw the track lines with a pencil and be able to erase them. I bought a gallon of light brown paint from the hardware store from the stack of cans they had made mistakes on. Oops, but it was only $10 and a gallon will be way more than I need. Before painting, I sanded the joints of the foam top. After removing our cat Pumpkin from the layout, I used a little isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel to clean the foam. Well, this turned out a little more yellow than I expected, but it'll do for now. And I accomplished my primary goal of being able to draw on the top with a pencil. I'm going to start laying track with the rail yard here on the left side of the layout. I'll get to the other sections later on. I started by drawing in the main line and siding. Since the wall here isn't straight, I based my track lines on the manufactured score lines on the foam to make sure they were straight. If you want more details about my approach to drawing these track lines, you can find a link in the upper right-hand corner to my video about this. I drew in the curves in the corners and their easements to make sure the placement of my turnouts was accurate. I decided to go with a number 6 turnout coming off the main line and use number 5 turnouts for the branch lines and the yard. with this portion of the track plan drawn out, I moved on to a few other tasks. I still have a few turnouts to build, so I continued working on those. One commenter here on YouTube suggested that I build the ladder for the yard in one piece, but I'm not sure I quite have the skills to be that precise with this work. I've got this bit down at the bottom of the ladder that has me scratching my head a little. This isn't quite a proper crossover, but I've got this section where the straight route of the right-hand turnout connects to the diverging route of a left-hand turnout. These sections overlap quite a bit, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to approach this. Do I want to just shorten up each of these sections and connect them with rail joiners and a bit of solder? Or do I want to try and build them all as one piece? Let me know what you think. In addition to building the turnouts, I need to prep the ties for my track. I got a bundle of 3/32 inch square basswood for my ties. Railroad ties are 8.5 feet long, so I pulled out my scale ruler and cut a tie to this length. I then set up my chop it using this tie as a pattern and chopped up some ties. Prior to doing the chopping, I need to take care of the fuzzy stuff on the wood. This is easily achieved by passing it through some steel wool a few times. As I worked, I checked the stop on my chop at about every third stick, just to keep it from migrating on me too far. I also switched out my blade a couple of times when the resistance started to feel too great. I have a bundle of 60 sticks and got 20 ties from each stick. I left 5 sticks unchopped to maybe use elsewhere, so at this point I should have around 1,100 ties. Next, I dyed the ties. I started with a cup of isopropyl alcohol and added 7 milliliters of peat brown ink. Maybe I should have mixed this on some newspaper. Well, the old toothpick trick didn't really work either. I added 10 drops of India ink. I tested the dye on a few ties, but just looking at it I knew it wasn't going to be dark enough, so I added the remaining 7 milliliters of peat brown ink and 10 more drops of India ink. After several hours, I'm not quite sure how long, I pulled the ties out of the dye. They still aren't quite dark enough. I added 20 more drops of India ink and started another test. This time I kept track of the time. I'm thinking that about 8 hours of dyeing time is going to be just right. So I set about dyeing the whole lot. I filled a pint jar with ties and dumped in the dye. Well, this isn't going to work. Maybe a wider vessel will work better. Nope. I put the ties back into the mason jar, but this time only adding as many as the dye would cover. I'll need to do these in a few more batches than I anticipated. After about 8 hours, I poured off as much dye as I could back into its original jar. And then dumped the ties into another vessel. I scooped out the ties and poured the remaining dye back into the jar. I believe I've got a couple more batches left before I'll be done. I still need to figure out the finish for the ties on the turnouts. Moving on to laying down some roadbed. I started by drawing lines 9/16 of an inch from the center line of the track on the layout. I'm using 1/4 inch cork and cutting strips to size. I cut a strip 1 1/8 inches wide. Although I realized after doing so I didn't give myself much room for error, since the ties are 1 1/8 inches themselves. I decided to cut these strips 1 1/4 inches instead. I'm using some clear silicone caulk to adhere it to the foam. Theoretically, this should allow me to pull it up if I make a mistake, rather than using a more aggressive adhesive. I laid down a bead of caulk and then spread it with a putty knife. Then I laid down the cork strip and weighed it down with some cans. I used my straight edge to make sure that the strips were, well, straight. After letting it cure overnight, I remove the cans, and it should be ready for me to lay some track, which I'll get started on in my next video. Well, a lot of this work has been a bit monotonous and repetitive, but it's what needs to be done. Hopefully, all this prep work will provide a good foundation for laying my track. As always, thanks for joining me for this episode. I'm pretty excited that I reached 1,000 subscribers, and I appreciate everyone's support. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and those links are below, along with information on the tools and supplies I use. Please join me again next time as I continue modeling the White River Line.